Name a Jedi who is thoughtful, insightful, analytical, and loyal to those around him, and you're probably talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now name a Star Wars miniseries that is none of those things, and, well, you're probably talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I admittedly made an oopsie when I got way too excited about the Obi-Wan series when it released, and now I'm sort of a sourpuss about it. But in my defense, this series deserves it in a very real way. The plot armor, the story missteps, the intentional restraint of each side when the lore demands someone survive, and the absurd lack of restraint when it doesn't, and worst of all, the way that it talks down to the audience is just insulting to Star Wars fans who went into this series with open hearts and open minds. So today I thought it would be good fun to get my blood pressure up a few points by laying bare the sins against Star Wars that Obi-Wan Kenobi commits. If that sounds like fun to you as well, then make sure your bantha's secured and settle in close to the campfire, because I'm Gray, you're watching Gray Galaxies, and today we're exploring 5 ways that Kenobi is a step backwards for Star Wars. The Inquisitors that we see during the first, 60 seconds of Kenobi are actually a pretty good representation of what the Inquisitorius should be. They land in the middle of the street, showing they don't really care about the consequences that the local transit authority or Imperial garrison might try to bring down on them. The locals are visibly terrified and do everything they can to not get on their bad side. This is exactly the sort of behavior that you would expect from a secret police force that operates above the law. But then, well, Reva just throws a knife at an innocent bartender who is cooperating with their questioning without provocation, then later just chops off some lady's hand and wanders through crowds of random civilians screaming and demanding information. Even the cartoonishly inept Inquisitors that we see in Rebels show far more restraint, reasoning skills, and tracking capabilities than this, and those cartoonish villains are meant for child audiences because they are literally cartoons. So why is a series that should be targeting adult demographics even less capable of depicting villains that are in any way believable? I know other YouTubers have drawn this parallel already, so I'll try to put my own spin on this as much as possible, but if you compare Kenobi's Inquisitors on Tatooine to, say, the Inquisitors from Jedi Fallen Order, their introduction goes very differently. First and foremost, the Inquisitors aren't the first sign that there's about to be a serious problem for our friend Cal Kestis, who is being hunted. The instant Cal steps off the train, he is accosted by silent troopers who aren't wearing the standard armor of the Imperial Army or even the Stormtrooper legions. The engines of TIE fighters wail overhead as 2 armored individuals not wearing normal Imperial uniforms emerge, and while they threaten to kill every passenger on the train unless someone steps forward, there does seem to be a question as to whether they would actually go through with their threat. When Cal's friend Prof steps forward using the opportunity to speak out against the Empire, he is casually silenced forever by the Second Sister. Every action taken by the Second and Ninth Sisters here is cold, calculated, and methodical. They never lose control of the situation, and when they do commit to acts of violence, it serves a purpose. Kill Prof before he can incite a riot and hopefully root out the Jedi he's protecting. Furthermore, they know that there is a high likelihood that their quarry is one of the train's passengers, thanks to actionable intelligence. They aren't blindly accosting crowds of random people because they think a Jedi is hiding somewhere on that planet's surface. We're not quite done with Jedi Fallen Order just yet. 5 years after Order 66, Cal Kestis broke into the Fortress Inquisitorius. He accessed the fortress through an underwater hatch, defeated an entire squad of purge troopers, stole a Jedi holocron, defeated the Second Sister in a final duel, and narrowly escaped an encounter with Darth Vader by shattering the glass shells of the fortress's underwater passageways, forcing Vader to choose between stopping the water coming in and killing him, or chasing the resourceful survivor. Now, this is a maximum security facility designed to incarcerate Force users and train the Emperor's secret police force intended to track down and arrest said Force users. The fact that a criminal managed to break in, steal classified government documents, and almost killed the Emperor's right-hand man should have been more than enough to warrant a review of security practices and an increase in the Fortress Inquisitorius's garrison. Fast forward another 5 years to the events of Kenobi, and Obi-Wan breaks in the exact same way to find hallways almost completely deserted, cell blocks completely devoid of security personnel, and this exchange that is so bad I need to grab a stiff drink while it plays.
Identification. No admittance without clearance.
I have Officer Class C.
Now, please.
Is there a problem?
This isn't your sector. I can't let you through.
And you are?
I am the lead security on this level.
Then I'm your commanding officer, and you will address me as Sir.
Yes, sir, of course, but...
Perhaps I should just inform the Grand Inquisitor of your insolence. I'm here with classified intelligence. Do you know what classified means?
Yes, sir.
Then why am I wasting my breath on you?
Yes, sir, of course.
So let's just run through this from the perspective of a security professional. We have an officer who is visibly nervous, not suspicious in and of itself, but it is out of the ordinary. Keep an eye on them.
Identification. No admittance without clearance.
They are attempting to bypass a credential check. That's a huge no-no, especially in a military installation, especially when attempting to gain access to a prison.
I have Officer Class C.
Now, please.
They're being argumentative. If you really had the necessary clearance, then the system would have allowed you through. Sure, no system check is perfect and there may be a mistake, but simply claiming you have access doesn't cut it. You need to provide alternative methods of authentication.
Is there a problem?
This isn't your sector. I can't let you through.
They aren't even assigned to that sector, no less to that facility. They should have a visitor's pass and escort, and their arrival should have been cleared ahead of time.
And you are?
I am the lead security on this level.
Then I'm your commanding officer, and you will address me as Sir.
They claim to be your commanding officer even though you've never met them and have not been informed of a change in command. You already determined they aren't assigned to that facility, so that statement is clearly a lie, and a really poorly thought out lie at that.
Yes, sir, of course, but...
Perhaps I should just inform the Grand Inquisitor of your insolence.
They rank drop, not name drop, rank drop the Grand Inquisitor, a pretty sure sign that they don't actually know anyone at the facility. You just got Karen'd.
I'm here with classified intelligence. Do you know what classified means?
They offered a vague explanation of why they're attempting to gain access to your facility that implies you have no right to verify or validate their claims. It doesn't matter what they're carrying, you as the security on that level are required to verify that they aren't carrying any dangerous materials, even if you don't have the clearance to read any documents they're carrying.
Why am I wasting my breath on you?
They proceed inside the facility even though you never actually cleared them. That is a clear security breach and you should have full authority to detain them in this circumstance. So this is the security awareness of the head of security on that level, the head of security who works at a facility that has already been broken into in recent memory. This is a very clear sign of a social engineering attack, and a very poorly executed one at that. There is absolutely no reason at all for a guard to be this inept. For those of you who don't know what a social engineering attack is, it is, quite simply, attempting to manipulate social interactions in order to gain access to privileged information or secure locations. You know those phone calls claiming there's an issue with your car's extended warranty or that they work for Microsoft and your computer has a virus? They're conducting a social engineering attack against you. In short, social engineering uses vulnerabilities in human systems to gain access to systems whose physical security or cybersecurity safeguards are too difficult to overcome. It's Security 101. So why is this guard, the chief of security for that level, completely oblivious to all of the red flags that we just raised? There's no reason for it. It is plot armor and shoddy writing, pure and simple. So this has sort of been an issue with Star Wars in general for quite some time now, but this series really takes the cake for chase scenes that aren't really chase scenes. They're just good guys and bad guys running in the same general direction for some reason. The scene where Flea and his cronies abduct Leia has already been beat to death on social media as completely unbelievable, as realistically that kid would have been caught instantly by pretty much any adult human or alien. But that's not the only chase scene that had me rolling my eyes in this series. The Reva doing force-assisted parkour while chasing Obi-Wan, who's running full tilt after yet again a slowly meandering 9-year-old Leia, is even less believable, and had me rolling my eyes so hard I was seriously considering whether to just shut my TV off and go outside. The worst though is this scene where all of the survivors of Reva's really terribly executed assault are escaping on a ship with no hyperdrive. Yeah, that's a new one in the Star Wars saga, and they somehow manage to evade an Imperial-class Star Destroyer by listing lazily to the left.
Besides, I know a few maneuvers. We'll lose them.
Where do they go?
There they are. They're listing lazily to the left. Go left, left!
Boy, this guy knows some maneuvers.
The ISD doesn't lock on a tractor beam like we know they are able to do, and they just keep shooting behind the ship as it slowly runs lethargic zigzags. Then Vader orders the ship to stand down while he goes off to chase Kenobi. This is a ship full of TIE fighters, including Vader's personal hyperdrive-equipped TIE. Why in the living force can't the ISD continue to pursue the renegades on the main ship, even if Vader is intent on confronting his old master? There is not a single shred of logic to this entire episode in Kenobi. There are much better ways to build tension that don't require obvious ineptitude on the part of the Empire in order to keep the lore of the original trilogy intact. If you're enjoying the video so far, it would mean a lot if you could ever so gently force push that like button. Viewer engagement is a metric we use to determine the type of content that offers the most value to you, a random person on the internet who has the power to determine whether I can make the payments on my slightly used N1 this month. Thank you, and now on to number 4. So this is something that I was a bit worried about even before I watched this series. As with any franchise that's been around for 50 years, the special effects capabilities of the film industry have improved slightly since A New Hope first hit theaters. There's the obvious real-world limitations which prevented Vader and Obi-Wan from tearing huge chunks out of the Death Star as they made their final showdown. But even then, 30 years later in Revenge of the Sith, special effects had come a long way, and we see Obi-Wan and Anakin doing lots of unnecessary flips and jumps and gaining high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Sorry, I just couldn't stop myself, but this was still sort of a believable set of skills that we were able to see based on what we had come to understand about the capabilities of Force users. The boarding scene from the end of Rogue One is sort of a perfect representation of Vader that really couldn't have made it to the silver screen in the 1970s. The sheer terror that he commands in his victims, his untouchability, the nonchalant manner in which he dispatches his enemies. This is Darth Vader. We see this again during Vader's reunion with Obi-Wan, as he coldly tortures and murders innocent civilians in order to goad Obi-Wan into a response. Again, this is the terrifying result of a lifetime of Force training, festering hatred, and desensitization to violence. But then we see him fighting an Inquisitor without even drawing his lightsaber, just uses the Force to stay her blade. Yes, this could feasibly be a use of the Force, but it's over the top, unnecessary, and you really don't see it anywhere else in the Star Wars saga, because it's lame. If you are really so powerful that you don't even need to use your lightsaber to defeat other Force users, then why even carry a lightsaber? Why did millennia of Jedi and Sith tradition place so much emphasis on lightsabers when they could have just really emphasized Force push? It's lazy, stupid, and did I say lame? Just in case I didn't, it's lame. There, I said it 3 times just to convey how utterly lame it is. This whole fight scene between Obi-Wan and Vader where they just throw rocks at each other is cinematically beautiful, but tactically moronic and again, lazy. There could have been so much choreography where Obi-Wan uses his intact but aging physical capabilities and calm wit and defeat the slow, mostly robotic but erratic and powerful movements of Vader. But they sort of wasted that chance by instead choosing to show flashbacks of Anakin, a supposed teenager portrayed by the now 41-year-old Hayden Christensen, sparring with an Obi-Wan in his late 20s portrayed by the 51-year-old Ewan McGregor. That whole episode was just very distracting and pointless. What's worse, much of this final showdown is just a copy and paste from Jedi Fallen Order, where Cal Kestis and the Night Sister Merrin fight the fallen Jedi Master Taron Malicos, who, get this, throws boulders at Cal to throw him off balance and is defeated by burying him in stone. The scene where Vader pulls a ship out of the air and tears it open to get at the Jedi he thinks is inside is really cool, but is also completely ripped off from the Force Unleashed games, which, don't get mad at me, aren't canon. So there's not a lot of precedence for a Jedi or Sith to have that much power. In a nutshell, the writers decided rather than take the effort to write a good story, create believable scenarios, and choreograph exciting saber duels, that they'd instead just steal these elements from other areas of the Star Wars universe and crank them up to 11 because bigger is always better. So Star Wars doesn't always, or ever really, consult with military veterans when they're coming up with battle scenes, so it's somewhat forgivable when you've got hillbilly teddy bears blowing up chicken walkers and eating up entire platoons of stormtroopers. But there's a difference between getting stuck in a tactically disadvantageous position and whatever the hell this is. Obi-Wan is a former general of a full-scale civil war in which he led armies that were significantly outnumbered in every battle they ever fought. Asynchronous warfare and defensive tactics against numerically superior forces is sort of his wheelhouse. So why, number one, are the imps attacking in this massive disorganized wave, and why is Kenobi not instructing these people on setting up proper defenses? This isn't Napoleonic warfare where you have to stand shoulder to shoulder in order to fire mass volleys to compensate for slow-to-load inaccurate weapons. This is fairly commensurate to the combat capabilities seen during the Vietnam War, rapidly firing weapons with high ammunition capacity, heavy weapons support. All I'm saying is this is the worst battle scene I have ever witnessed given the technology available and military training and experience supposedly available on both sides. There's a lot of other things that I don't like about this series, but it's not like it's all bad. It does answer a lot of questions, even if many of them weren't actually ever asked. The parting conversation that Vader and Obi-Wan share is quite powerful, and I admit I got a bit choked up as I watched it for the first time. So it does have some powerful storytelling that does expand the Star Wars universe for the better, but that is so buried, so hard to find, and so outweighed by the utterly contrived and useless elements that make up the vast majority of this series that it's difficult to imagine anyone ever read this script and said, yes, this is a story that needs to be told. Wow, that was way more negative than I had intended when I set out to write this script. That totally got away from me. Anyway, if you're still watching, I just want to say thank you for sticking around this long. I'm curious which Kenobi is your favorite. I'm pretty partial to his portrayal in Revenge of the Sith myself. Alec Guinness, eat your heart out. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Gray, you've been watching Gray Galaxies, and may the Force be with you always.